So Thierry Marchal is actually a very multifaceted professional, and he is the industry director for healthcare and sport since 2006 at Ansys, which a company that most of you know, at least people doing computational fluid dynamics and computational biomechanics. And he has a degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA in marketing. So he has technical background, and along his activity and his key activity actually in Ansys, he's also the Secretary General of the Avicenna Alliance, that the mission of which is to lead medical devices, pharmaceutical and biotech companies through the in silico and personalized medicine strategies, internationally speaking. And he's also a member of the e-stakeholder group, which provides advice and expertise to the European Commission, so on all these matters. So yes, Thierry has a very rich experience and expertise, and I'm very grateful to have him here presenting this morning. He will be also present this afternoon at the roundtable, so that and we will be able then to continue the discussions about this meeting point between technology, industry, and regulation. But no, I will leave the word to Thierry. Thierry, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Jerome, for this introduction and this kind invitation. Thank you to all of you for giving me a few minutes, because you all know that in silico is extremely important. But one of the components that I would like to bring here is that we can already exploit today in silico method, and we are doing that extensively. But that's why I want to bring, as part of this session, about understanding decision support and therapy support, to show you how it is possible to bring this kind of technology, method, research from academics toward the industry and also this hospital. I want to share with you all these in silico methods are already changing the world today, and even more in the future. This is crucial, because when you think every year, the world is spending $8.7 trillion in healthcare. $3.5 trillion in US only, 18% of that GDP. When you think about that, the revenue that from the pharma industry, $1.2 trillion, the investments which are made, $170 billion, this kind of cost of getting a new medical device to the market is $100 million. Those are huge numbers. And some of you might be right to say, okay, but how do I dare to talk about money when we are talking about the life of people? And over there, the numbers are even more impressive to see that, well, 11 million of Americans are suffering from this kind of chronic respiratory disease. 600,000 Americans, and about the same in Europe, a little bit more in America, are suffering from heart disease. Well, keep in mind, it's more emotional that 1 out of 100 babies are born with heart defect. Some of them are very serious. Big numbers. There is only the last number, which is small, 1. You've got, and we've got all only 1 life. We cannot change that. So that's the reason why it's very important to take advantage of what we're doing here. Well, this is the current situation is unsustainable. When we see the increase of cost of healthcare, I was showing you some big costs, and this is increasing exponentially. At the bottom, you can see that the cost of bringing a new drugs or a new vaccine to the market is $2.5 billion and taking between 10 to 15 years. That's simply unsustainable. If we want to have in the future the same quality of care, of health care that we've got today, we need to find another solution. And there is no big surprise to see that the healthcare stakeholder, all the healthcare communities extensively thinking about that. The fact that we are moving from this one-size-fits-all, this kind of orthopedic implant, to a personalized medicine. The fact that people start to talk and moving from in vivo, in vitro testing to in silico testing. working on the computer rather than in the reality. That is kind of trend that we are seeing, which is impacting. And for all of you present today and learning more about this kind of in silico method as part of the VPH summer school, I'd like to tell you that the business opportunity and the market for your career in the future is huge. Because indeed there is a problem. This healthcare industry is investing a lot in R&D. In fact, this is the largest R&D investor after the high-tech industry, as you can see here, $240 billion. On the other hand, many of you might say that, well, there are very little investment in simulation, as you can see, 150 million compared to other industries. That was the reality in 2019. What we can see is that things are changing rapidly, and the healthcare market is catching up. So that means that they are investing a lot, especially in people, in order to make sure that they're catching that. And I'm not talking about the future, I'm talking about today. This year, we are expecting that the investment will be increasing by $30 million in order to take advantage more of this kind of in silico approach. Why is it like that? Well, there has been a kind of strong push from people like Jerome and the VPH initiative in general. This has been accelerated recently. And for all the bad things that we can see as part of COVID, one good thing is that people realize that we need to go very fast. We don't have time to waste. And during the last few months, many people were turning to in silico to say, okay, can you do something for us? Not just in treatment, but also in prevention. And we were very proud that all the media around the world were learning from simulation what are this kind of social distance. Because at the beginning, politicians were talking about 1 meter, 1.5 meters, 6 feet, 2 meters, and so on. This kind of CFD approach, we're giving some clear illustration, not just the quantified result, but also giving some element in order to explain to the population, because this kind of CFD result that you can see on the top left, for example, using VR, but those are CFD results, why it's important to stay 1.5 meters away from people. Why can we use this kind of UV decontamination? What is the role of the mask for that? So suddenly people realize that indeed the adoption of in silico is something for the future. And thanks to that, among other, because the role of the medical staff was phenomenal and clearly what has saved the world here. But we were glad to see this kind of small contribution coming from in silico. So things are changing, and there is no go back. So that's what I want to discuss here, the different point, after introducing this kind of crucial importance of in silico approach, but discussing about what is this kind of adoption. And we will see this kind of 7 layers of this adoption that we will review one by one, like a digitalization of healthcare and AI, virtual organ in silico clinical trial, clinical apps, and personal digital avatar. But before going there, well, I need to give credit to the 2 organizations I'm working for. And first, this kind of Avicenna Alliance that I'd like to briefly introduce to you, which is a non-for-profit organization, which is truly global. So covering all the parts of the world, Asia, Europe, North America, also covering this kind of pharma, software, medical device area, even cosmetics, and also involving some people from the regulator, from the academic world, from the industry, also from the patient, with one common mission. Of course, we can say that we are willing to accelerate healthcare innovation. We want to make it safer, more cost efficient. But the specificity of the Avicenna Alliance, from which is VPHI, as I will discuss it later today, is that we are only focusing on this in silico approach. In silico approach can make a huge difference, and is making a huge difference. On the other hand, I'm also working for Ansys, which is my primary activity. Ansys is an American-based company developing software. The interest of this approach is that Ansys is not just developing software for the healthcare industry. It's developing software which is used across the board, across all the industry, high-tech, healthcare, of course, but energy, automotive, aeronautic. So the revolution that we are seeing today in healthcare, we've experienced that in other industries in the past. We know this is successful. We know it's just taking some time, but everybody will massively adopt that. This is just a matter of years here. So that's why you are definitely in the right place. And look at this kind of numbers. Think about that. Ansys is generating a revenue only for this kind of in situ method adapted across the different industry of $2 billion and reaching a market cap of 25 to 30 billion dollars. So that means a massive investment of all the industry in this kind of method. So once again, you are in the right place. But are people in the healthcare industry adopting simulation? Well, I've been leading this healthcare activity at Ansys for the last 15 years and being part of the Avicenna Alliance for the last 5 years. From many discussions, I found out that there are at least 3 best practices that the industry is adopting. And the first, I will call it the virtual human laboratory. The fact that if you can create the working environment, which is the human body, and therefore you can create a reliable, perfectly validated human environment in such a way that you can start implanting the device or interacting with the body or analyzing the interaction between the drugs and the human body and understand what's going on into the patient, no matter of what is his activity. It could be lying in his bed, or she can be driving a car or doing some kind of exercise and getting a lot of information. That's a fantastic laboratory that you can do very early in the product development process before you have created any kind of physical prototype. One of the key elements was to make sure that this is reliable. That's why this kind of collaboration with academics are very, very important. That means that the impact for that is huge. We can understand much better what's going on with a specific implant, and we can make this kind of adjustment. An example that I like to share, and sorry if some of you have seen it, but I think it's very emotional. I remember that a few years ago, there was 2 young parents that just got the first baby, this little Julia over there. So we're very happy with that. Unfortunately, the doctor was quickly coming to their room to say, okay, big problem. Julia's got a very strong heart malfunction, and she will die within a few days. Of course, you can understand that the parents are completely devastated by this news. Okay, there should be some solution. And in fact, there are several solutions for that, several surgeries that could be done. But it's very difficult to find out which one will be safe for Julia and which one will improve the situation. Fortunately, this hospital was working closely with Politecnico di Milano, and the team of Gabriele Dubini and Francesco Migliavacca were using simulation. So they very quickly make a scan of this little Julia, analyze this kind of 3D flow to see what's going on in the heart, which kind of bypass we can create, combining that with the full cardiovascular system. Based on that, it was a matter of hours, days. The team of Politecnico di Milano was able to show the different solutions, the different results of the different alternatives for the surgeon. The surgeon was making himself the decision, but using this kind of result to say, okay, I will go with this kind of surgery and I will operate the little Julia. Well, he did that. The first surgery was good. There was a couple of other surgery after that. But no, this little baby who's got only 2 days to live. She's 10 years old. She's a little brother. She's able to play into the backyard at her own. So those are these kind of success stories which are very emotional and where we can see the value of this simulation. But if we can do that for one person, why not to do it for a large number of patients? And that is kind of second best practice, in situ testing. Computer model and in situ method allow us not just to do it for one specific situation like we are doing it in other industry, but being able to reproduce the same approach, taking into account the human variability, be it on the geometric side or the material properties. Some typical illustration that you can see here, and this is a collaboration between Frida and also some work done at Oklahoma State University, is the fact that you can start testing this kind of approach, airflow, particle deposition, on animals as well, on different kind of rats. Then moving on to a guinea pig, to cat, to a dog, to monkey, and collect more information so that the entire approval process will be much faster. So those are the kind of in silico testing. Now there is no limitation. It's not just on one single human being. It's not just on a large number of human beings. It's the entire process. But if you can test that on a large number of people, why not using it for a regulatory approval process? This is the third best practice that I have observed in the industry, supported by many academics here and supported by the regulator, because the FDA, this is one of the slides that you are seeing here, are saying, okay, we are talking about computer model. But by the way, a mouse is an in vivo model of a human being. And this kind of equipment is an in vitro model of the human being. And even a clinical trial is a limited, a small model of the entire population when you're testing on 2,000 people in order to represent 7 billion or 8 billion people. All of that as a model. And the point is to properly validate the model that you are using. So that means that digital evidence, if properly validated, are fully recognized and accepted. Now, how can we build this kind of situation? And let me show here what we are developing at Ansys and as program director. That's this element, because we want that to become a reality as soon as possible. There are several layers, starting with this kind of network, and especially this kind of academic and clinical network. We need to work with these people in order to properly validate, properly develop some kind of new model. Very basic layer, fundamental layer that we need to do. Then after that, when we've got this kind of layer, we need to go to this kind of digital transformation that we will review. Not just developing a kind of computer model, but making sure that this can be used widely, whether it is in the hospital or in the industry, which is not just this kind of fluid structure or electromagnetic modeling. The next layer would be to develop this kind of virtual organs, be the heart, the brain, the respiratory tree, the eyes, and so on, in such a way that we are creating some kind of platform. The goal is not just to make a kind of nice model of the heart because this is symbolic, but that something that we can use systematically to test new pacemaker, test new drugs, and so on. Once we have this kind of heart and model or virtual organ, we can start moving to in silico clinical trial as a way to replace this kind of very time and costly step in order to validate it and to improve the safety. If we've got this kind of in silico clinical trial on thousands, tens of thousands, why not millions of virtual patients in the future? That means that we are ready to move to this kind of clinical application. Bringing that in a very smooth, streamlined way to the hospital in such a way that we can take advantage of this model easily. That's already a reality today. And the ultimate element is what I call the personal digital avatar. A digital twin, a computer model of yourself, not of a generic human being, but of yourself, of you, Jerome, of myself, connected with us with some kind of smartwatch, pacemaker, and so on. And by the way, along all these stages, all these layers, AI is becoming very important, because AI can take advantage of this kind of validated in silico model and create some big data, either to complement this kind of model or to make sure that we can move on into a new area. So those are the kind of different layers that we can see as very important in order to build this kind of revolution that we've been talking about, and that in silico method will be essential. So let me go into some detail for some of them, and starting with this kind of digitalization of healthcare and AI, because I don't just want to talk about big buzzword. My point is to make sure that this is a reality as soon as possible. And along this line, let me borrow from time to time some slides from Ansys because it was easier. When we are talking about developing a model that can be used, we are not just talking about creating this nice computer model. We are talking about a full network, a full platform environment, like making sure that you have the right material properties in an accessible database like Granta, having the right geometry that you need to properly segment, and there are some fantastic tools for advanced segmentation over there, having the right boundary condition, the right load, like transferring this kind of motion from the people. If you're putting all that together, that means that you can create this kind of geometry, an advanced computer model of a given patient. That also means that you need to consider some approach, like either bringing it to the not expert patient, or having some kind of user interface, which are very important for kind of general purpose tools. Other elements which are quite important is this kind of post-processing. Because if you have some fantastic result of your model, but only you can post-process that, you are missing a big part of it. So very important to make sure that, especially today, we can take advantage of VR in order to help the doctor, help even the user, the designer, to understand that better. But before reaching this kind of post-processing, these models are becoming much more complex than before, than when I started Ansys 30 years ago. That means that you need a lot of computational power. Well, the solution is there, the cloud. You just need to harness all this kind of fantastic computational power in order to go faster. Well, having this kind of model nicely post-processed, that's still not sufficient. We need to make sure that we can develop that with all the human variability and report it in a way that could be used for the clinician, the regulator, and or the people. That's what other companies, part of the Avicenna Alliance, also are doing, like Digital Orthopedic, Catheter Medical, Silico Trials, all these fantastic startups, small company, but very visionary people, able to be there to make the right environment in place in such a way that we can develop that. And by the way, that's also meaning manufacturing that. And today we can also take into account this kind of 3D manufacturing that should also be modern. This is not just the design, this is the model itself. And later on, moving to this kind of personal digital avatar, and we'll go to that. Be careful that this could mean quite a lot of modeling, and therefore generating quite a lot of data. So SDPM, like a simulation process and data management, are important. That's what I mean by digitalization of healthcare, not to focus on just creating the model. We need to be broader. And if I'm taking the example of this wearable insulin pump, as you can see in this short slide, it's not just modeling this kind of insulin flow and or the electronic component of the pump here. It's modeling every single part of it in such a way that we will be ensuring through this kind of in situ method that this kind of wearable insulin pump will be working well, no matter of the situation and no matter of who is wearing it. It could be a young kid who is willing to play football and therefore might have some impact. Review that. To some extent, the first element is to create this kind of catheter over there. The catheter might be relatively complex, and we want to make sure that we have exactly the shape which is necessary coming from the design. So let's manufacture properly this kind of catheter. But when we are looking at the catheter, unfortunately, as you can see on the picture on the top right, there could be some bending and this kind of kicking problem which is appearing. Kicking is not good because if the kicking is too large, that means that the insulin cannot flow anymore. We need to understand, depending upon the situation, depending upon the bending that we will have, what will be the impact of it. That's all related to the understanding component of the session today. What will be there so that we can go to the right decision support, keeping in mind that the decision might be made by the patient himself. So if we go one step further, we need to understand what's going on when we are injecting the needle here in the soft tissue, and whether this kind of injection will be done depending upon the material properties. That's opening the door to this kind of tissue characterization, and one of the key topics and task force that we are leading at the Avicenna Alliance, because it's very important to understand whether the material property will allow us to have a nice penetration of the element, considering the human variability over there. And once we have this kind of needle which have been fully integrated, now we need to release the insulin. It could be any kind of product. This kind of approach is typically what was done for this kind of any kind of COVID vaccine injection. what will happen? Will this kind of vaccine or insulin spread and diffuse properly inside the soft tissue? So as you can see, different components that needs to be taken into account. But I was telling you that some of the kids might be wearing this kind of wearable insulin pump because they're suffering from diabetes. And well, we cannot prevent these kids to go out to play football, to bike, and maybe to fall. But what happened in this case? So what happened if this kind of, there is a high impact of this kind of wearable insulin pump? There will be some damage over there. Will this damage be bad in such a way that indeed the insulin cannot be injected, which can be very bad for the patient? We need to find out what will be happening over there. So this kind of model can be very diverse here, but needs to be taken into account. Another component that I would like to mention is that, well, this wearable insulin pump is likely connected in order to send some warning message. We think connection means that there are some energy which is emitted. Is that safe for the patient? So it's very important to model and to understand what is the specific absorption rate for the kind of patient, whether there is a risk of necrosis, and if yes, how can we make sure that we can decrease that? On the other hand, it's very important to calculate that in such a way that the different people will be able to reduce that before we are going to the regulatory approval process and use this kind of model to demonstrate to the FDA, the different notified body, and so on around the world that the design is done properly. There is an angle that which is already used quite extensively in the other industry, but not yet in healthcare. This is the kind of embedded software. That's definitely an area where most of the biomedical engineer and the industry need to pay more attention in the future. In the sense that most of this kind of healthcare device are not driven by this kind of embedded software. We have to make sure that this embedded software will not fail. And therefore we need to combine this kind of physical modeling, fluid, structure, electrophysiology, with any kind of embedded software. Bear in mind that any kind of airplane, this kind of pilot control of the airplane are also modeled by this kind of tools. So they are very reliable. We have to make sure that this kind of pacemaker, wearable insulin pump here are safe, not just to deliver the right product, but also can face some kind of cyber attack that the people can be facing, especially important for a pacemaker. So introducing this kind of component is getting quite important. And let me consider this kind of kicking process when we are bending the catheter and this is not leading to the right element. That's the kind of component that we can embed into the model and therefore go much further with this kind of in silico approach, in the sense that we can have some kind of autonomous patient, much more important than autonomous car, by the way, I think. And considering that if there are kinking process, if the pressure of the sensor is becoming higher than the pressure of the threshold over there, we need to stop the activity of the insulin because otherwise there might be some problem and send an immediate warning to the patient. So those are the different components which are there. And all this kind of calculation that should be pre-calculated for reduced order model in such a way that we don't have to wait for several hours to have the result of the calculation, but we can send a warning to the patient, no matter where it is, immediately with this kind of response surface curve. That's leading to this kind of AI for health, one of the pillars that I was mentioning. Well, AI is taking advantage of big data. One of the problems in AI is that indeed, it's very important to make sure that we have reliable observation. But when we have some kind of in silico model, you are all familiar with the fact that we need to validate this model quite extensively. That means that any result that is coming from this model are validated. And we can start playing with this model to consider some kind of extreme case. Let me come back to this situation where I've got my smart device, nearly a digital twin of the wearable insulin pump. And I'm creating a kind of smart patient I mean a model of the patient using PKPD model in such a way that I can understand what will happen in the patient and how will feel the patient when we see this kind of injection of insulin, depending upon any kind of situation, impact on, on the wearable insulin pump, kinking effect over there. So suddenly we can see what's going on in the patient that could have a feedback loop to the wearable insulin pump. Means that using this kind of approach, AI is in such a way that we are learning more and we are making sure that this device will be more efficient. That's a fantastic juxtaposition of in-situ method and AI when they can really help each other. Let me move to the second element, because we've got a good vision that we need a full digitalization of healthcare, and this could also help AI. I'd like to borrow some work from a remarkable research work done at Oklahoma State University, Professor Yu Feng, focusing on the respiratory tree. And to some extent, creating this kind of virtual organ, virtual lungs here, developing a protocol where we can go from the patient, scan the patient, and allow to understand what's going on in the lungs. So at the beginning, the idea was just to analyze this kind of CFD flow, but we realized that, of course, we are breathing. And when we are breathing, that means that there will be a lot of deformation of the respiratory tree. If we want to be reliable, we need to make sure that we can take that into account to see what will be the impact of all this movement on the respiratory flow, on the airflow, but also on the particle or toxin deposition in the lungs. Will that be okay if you have some person in a very good condition, of people suffering from asthma, having some problem to breathe properly? We need to push it further and to analyze this kind of glottis environment and going all the way to the alveolar, to have this kind of CFD model inside the alveolar with due validation going on over there. This will allow us to develop some kind of always more advanced model. One of the problems that I'm facing quite a lot is that people are still working in silos, or maybe not the silos that we were facing 10 years ago, where we've got the CFD people and the structural analysis people working on their side. We are observing the silos that we've got on one end, the mechanistic people doing finite element modeling, CFD analysis, and so on. And the other end, the people doing some kind of PKPD approach. That's not acceptable anymore. Because when you are looking at your lungs, that means that you've got some 3D air flowing into the lung, and then this is absorbed in order to go to the cardiovascular system. We need to move some model towards a model that will be able to combine all these elements. And therefore, getting this kind of particle dispersion in the lungs using, for example, CFD, possibly fluid structure interaction, and take that inside this kind of a PKPD model in such a way that we'll be able to see where are these lungs going on. So that's some kind of very nice work done by Professor Yu Feng to combine traditional CFD method together with a PKPD or PBTK for the toxin kinetic model to understand better what's going on inside the body. That's one of the good elements for creating this kind of virtual organ. But that's not enough, in the sense that my respiratory tree will be different than yours, Jerome, will be different the one of Lise that will be talking this afternoon, and from all of you. So that means that we need to start thinking about what is a process where we can go relatively quickly from a given patient going into the hospital, getting the right geometry, being able to measure the airflow that is able to breathe in such a way that for each of these patients, we'll be able to develop this kind of model that we were just describing and know, and being able to find out what will be the particle distribution for all of them, and that in a reasonable amount of time, taking advantage of the cloud, this kind of web environment. So that's an area that can also start feeding this kind of AI element. So that's why I was suggesting that AI is present everywhere. But let's imagine that we are developing this kind of approach, and I'm not talking about the future. I'm talking about what has already been published in peer-reviewed paper. This is becoming very interesting because suddenly we can have this kind of a large cohort of patient-specific geometry, patient-specific material properties, or boundary condition. We can get the results of what will be the drug or particle deposition in the lungs for different people. And depending on that, we have this kind of validated result, reliable observation coming from validated model, in order to find out, depending upon the size of the particle diameter, what will be the distribution depending upon our population. Therefore, we are in a very good position either for the pharma industry to better understand what should be the condition to release the drugs out of the inhaler, or to understand the risk of contamination because of pollution, for example, or because of COVID or any other element, in such a way that we will see what's going on. This can lead to some new opening, and that's leading to more understanding, but also decision support and even therapy support. Very nice work which has been done over there is that if you are targeting, for example, a lung cancer with a tumor which is in a very specific area, that means that you need to deliver the drug in this area. Typically, if we are using an inhaler, that means that you will be absorbing the inhaler everywhere, and it will spread everywhere into the lungs. We are wasting quite a lot of elements. Only 10% will go to the target area. On the other hand, if you can find out that in this kind of yellow zone, all these particles who are leaving the inhaler from there and entering the mouth of there for a given patient will be reaching a target area, that means that we can increase the delivery accuracy much more significantly, provided that the flow is laminar and the patient is quiet. So that means that there are fantastic ways here to better understand what is going there, and in this case, to dramatically improve the therapy efficiency, which is very important in terms of sustainability. What is very interesting, and where I was very proud of this work done by my friend Yufeng, is that this was done and started a few years ago. And they were using this kind of approach in order to model the propagation of virus like influenza A here, 2 years ago, in fact. This is a very similar process that was studied in order to better understand this kind of COVID propagation. So that's calling also, and we are directly dealing with the European authority and the European American authority as well, to say that now that we are both to defeat COVID, let's get ready as soon as possible for the next pandemics, because we need to develop and to fund this kind of research in such a way that for the next pandemic, we'll be ready from day one, and we will know what to do to develop this kind of in situ method. That was for this kind of virtual organ for the lungs, but I like to mention some initiative also on the heart, which is there, which is certainly something very important. One of our members of the Avicenna Alliance, Dassault, is developing this kind of very well-known virtual and living heart, which is fantastic program over there. It's great to see that many players are moving to this area. Ansys is going over there. And globally speaking, the idea is really this kind of high fidelity model in a general framework. High fidelity so that the results are reliable in a general framework in such a way that we can do that for a large number of patients. Making sure that all the physics are involved. And in the case of the lungs, I was talking about CFD and structural analysis. In the case of the heart, we need to have this kind of electrophysiology. When we are talking about the eye, we need some optical modeling, which is there. Very important to have a flexible interface, and we will see that because we can derive that for different applications. And one of the elements, one of the mistakes that we should not do is to work in silos. And I've been always very strong for that at Ansys to say, okay, the only way to go fast, and we must go fast simply because the worldwide population is waiting for us, is that we need to collaborate. We need to work as part of an ecosystem. We need to collaborate with all the industry members, with all the academic members, with all the clinical members, in order to develop this kind of activity with the goal to have a clinically validated patient-specific model, which is able to give some result quasi-instantaneously. Yes, indeed. You know that all this kind of model for a complex 3D model for the heart are something very complex. But we cannot wait for 1 or 2 days to get the result. We need to observe a kind of risk of heart failure and being able to give excuse me, some warning to the patient quite instantaneously that his heart will be failing, and therefore you need to go to the hospital relatively quickly. But the goal is right now not just to develop this kind of platform for the beauty of being able to model what's going on in the heart. There is an immediate and very interesting, very important industry goal where we are collaborating with a lot of academic partners over there. The goal is this kind of in situ clinical trial, not immediately to replace clinical trial by in situ clinical trial, but to go with the 3R, refine, reduce, and replace. The vision that we've got here is that any people, any sponsor can introduce their device, the drug. Clinician can introduce a new clinical protocol, and that on a web environment. Below this web environment, we need to have some very large population. And I'm envisioning the fact that we need to go beyond a few thousand patients, go relatively quickly to 10,000 millions of patients, because we can take advantage of this rapidly growing computational power. Having this kind of patient-specific or patient-realistic library of geometry, making sure that we have accepted material properties with this certificate of birth, like the FDA is asking for that. Making sure that we have any kind of condition, because we want to make sure that a patient who's getting some drugs, getting some implant, can still have some activity, whether this is walking or whether this is going to ski or going to bike or just going to jog, which is important. We need to combine that with this kind of pathology model and develop this kind of standard. And we are very proud to welcome DIN, this kind of a standard organization from Germany, as a partner of the Avicenna Alliance. We need to make sure that we are connecting all that with a computer model and structure the data properly in such a way that this result will be accepted by the FDA. And I'm not talking about our long-term future. We are already working with key members of VPHI in order to make sure that within the next few months, there will be several publications showing this kind of in situ clinical trial. I'm envisioning that within a few years, 5, 6 years from now, this kind of approach should become a kind of routine activity for people. Why is it so important? Let's get this kind of publication that has been done by Medtronic in front of the European Parliament during this Avicenna event in 2018. Medtronic was saying that they were using this kind of computer model of the heart that I was previously mentioned, properly validate, submit to the FDA and approved by the FDA. So the FDA accept this kind of model and say, okay, with this kind of model, I can say that any kind of, you can use this kind of model to answer any question that I will be asking you. So after submitting their pacemaker micro over there, FDA of course got a few questions, including one about the hook of the pacemaker inside the soft tissue. And they accepted that Medtronic was using this model in order to answer this kind of question. Well, in a matter of days, a couple of weeks, Medtronic was able to answer or to provide reliable, satisfying answer to the question of the FDA, and therefore get approval. Getting the approval 2 years in advance. 2 years in advance because they didn't have to do another clinical trial on 256 patients. What would they have been accepted? Well, 256 patients, what's the point? Well, when you need to implant a new device in a patient, the cost is $40,000 per patient. Well, if you multiply 256 by $40,000, you are reaching $10 million, which is a cost saving, big cost saving for Medtronic. And it's even more important for a smaller company. But well, once again, that's about money. What is very important for Medtronic in this case and what they were explaining is that bringing this product 2 years in advance to the market means that they were able to treat 10,000 patients. 10,000 patients during these 2 years who benefit from this new advanced technology, who could not have benefited from this new technology if they were not using this kind of in situ method. So there are always a kind of emotional impact on this element behind this second point. And I still have a few minutes, so let me go through the last element to say, okay, what is our vision? How can we further exploit this kind of approach? It's great to have this kind of computer model of the lungs, of the heart. Can we have an impact for the clinician, for the other people? And the answer is yes. Let me show you this kind of collaboration done with the Clinic of Barcelona. So something that's very close to you. And this kind of fully validated clinical model, especially here for this left ventricle, when arrhythmia could be quite important. That's typically about decision support and therapy support. The best way to do it is to make sure that we have the right place to do ablation and understand what will be the impact of this ablation process on the electrophysiology of the heart. If you can come up with an application which is very easy to use for the clinician, very easy, not because this guy is stupid, but this guy is so busy saving the life of people, possibly us, that they don't have the time to learn some advanced element. It's up to us, the in situ expert, to make sure that we are carefully listening to them, listening to what they need, packaging all our technology and all our complex model in an environment which is simpler for them to use and quick, in such a way that we can have this kind of result using some kind of reduced order model relatively quickly, giving them the right recommendation in order to move and to do the proper ablation, and therefore reducing the risk for the patient. That's not just one single application for the heart, but I was very excited to host a couple of months ago an ophthalmologist telling me that, well, it's working with Optimize. Optimize has developed a simplified interface on top of some structural analysis tools in order to optimize and to put it to the patient-specific level, this kind of laser eye surgery. This ophthalmologist was telling me that thanks to this kind of computer model, in situ approach, he can do the surgery and adjust the parameter specifically to a given patient. So rather than doing 2 or 3 surgery, when you are shooting with a laser in the eyes of the patient, can you imagine a surgeon shooting with a laser in your own eyes? I will be quite scared by that. And in the past, because of this, the fact that this was just average patient, average data, they had to do it 2 or 3 times. And now this ophthalmologist was saying, okay, now I can do it only 1 time. So that's what you can see, that there are more and more applications for that. And I'm just calling you for developing more applications. We need to bring this kind of in situ method, not just as a nice academic model, not just as a tool that can be used in the industry, but we need to bring it into the hospital in such a way that they can address the question of the clinician and being easy to use. So that's putting me to the fact that I can see now emerging as a fourth best practice, the fact that we have digital patient for customized treatment, the fact that indeed there are more and more hospitals taking advantage of this technology, who are fully trusting this technology. Look at that, Professor Vincent Costala from the Hospital of Montpellier. Engineering simulation is very promising technology to assist me, and the result provided by simulation is proven to be reliable. That means that they can take advantage of that. I just want to mention from Boston Children's Hospital, very nice collaboration driven by Boston Children's Hospital, taking advantage of Dassault technology and Ansys technology. We need to all join force in order to make sure that this is happening. And they were recently explaining the story of a little Ali, little girl, 9-year-old girl. She's got a major problem with the heart, only 1 year to live, because the blood was not flowing properly. different kind of technology over there in order to analyze which could be this kind of best shortcut that they can do. And they were using simulation in order to understand what's going on. But sometimes when you are in the operating room, you need to get some kind of guidance, immediate guidance. And this is why this guy, David Jorgensen, is the doctor, the pediatric cardiovascular surgeon, is held by Peter Hammer here. And they developed some tool using discovery in order to have instantaneous result from CFD. We are talking about instantaneous CFD result, not the same level of accuracy than what you can get with a product like Influenza, CC+, and others, but accurate enough in such a way that the clinician can make a reliable decision. And that's some of the key elements. And by the way, based on that, they've been able to make sure that the blood flow is properly balanced between the two lungs of the little Ali. They were making the surgery according to that. And after that, she was recovering very nicely, very quickly, faster than before. And that was leading to a new way to do this kind of surgery. Fantastic story, which is still available online. I will encourage you to listen to that. Therefore, we can start moving about toward digital twin and personal digital avatar. Let me tell you that, well, having a digital twin of a people like a patient, that's a fantastic story, and CombBiomed is doing amazing progress for that. Let's not forget that we can also create some digital twins which are more routine today. Digital twin of a bioreactor to make sure that we are maintaining the right productivity level for all the living entities which are in this bioreactor. Combining the CFD structural analysis model together with biological model. With the result is that we will be forgetting this kind of productivity problem that we were facing at the beginning of this COVID and vaccine production, because we've got this digital twin which are continually driving this application, the bioreactor, and making sure that if there is anywhere a pH level, temperature level, oxygen level dropping, we can take very quick action because this is reacting instantaneously. So that's what's going on today, already in other industry, but also in this kind of pharma industry. But the ultimate goal is to make sure that we can do that for each of us, and therefore creating this kind of personal digital avatar as a way that we can personalize the implant, the doses of drugs, personalize this kind of surgical treatment, and in return, provide billions of virtual patients in order to treat some new patient. That's the vision that we've got, which is starting now, in the sense that even if we don't have the full personal digital avatar, we can certainly already create, and this is a reality in some hospitals, especially in Europe and in France, where you have some digital twin of part of the patient which is there. So coming back to my initial pyramid with the different layers, you can see that indeed we were doing some of them. I was talking about this pyramid for organ and medical device, which can be easily adjusted to what's going on in terms of a process on the pharma side or on the creation of medical device here. And to wrap up, so what? That's fantastic image here, nice, colorful picture. Are we really having an impact? Reducing this huge cost, reducing the number of deaths. Can we prevent this kind of disease? So that's the situation. And where I think that there is no alternative today for working together. We cannot work in silos. We need to collaborate. And that would be one of my key messages to you today. And again, I was mentioning several times, you are in the right place because computer models are now widely accepted. They've been extensively clinically validated. And even the regulator and the policymaker that we are meeting with regularly as part of the Avicenna Alliance recognize that this is a good information and recognize the need to regulate this kind of environment. So step by step, we are going towards this kind of personal digital avatar that will completely change our life and prevent quite a lot of disease in the future. So that's where we'll be working very closely with you. It could be intimidating, but let's make sure that we are working together and reaching this kind of fantastic element, this revolution, this healthcare revolution will be much bigger than this kind of web revolution that we've seen with the communication. And I'm about the end of the hour that I've got. There are so many things that we can discuss. You can certainly reach me. I'm quite active on social media. Don't hesitate to send me an email, but let's stay connected because we really need to work together. And I would be very happy to address any question if we still have the time. And once again, I want to thank you very much for your time today. I know that your time is very precious. And thanks again, Jérôme and the organizer for inviting me today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thierry, for this impressive talk. So we have a question in the chat. So maybe you want to, I think it's, I don't know if it's Christian Lalande. Maybe you want to just pick up your question.
Yes. First, thank you, Thierry, for the very interesting presentation. It was very understandable and very interesting. You mentioned at the beginning that vaccine takes more than a decade to be developed and put in the market, more or less 15 years, if I remember the number.
Yes.
For the COVID vaccine, do you know if they have been using a computer model to speed up the process in order to put it more faster in the market?
Yes, extensively. I've been directly involved over there. We are not allowed to discuss in which section yet. One of the key elements is, for example, for the scale-up process. Once you have the vaccine accepted, you need to go to a production scale. And here was something quite unique. Production scale means that you go to the pilot scale, about 1 liter, to a large production, 5,000 liters. This is not the same equipment. All this mixing process are different. And here we have to go from a things that we have never done in the past. Going from a 1 liter, injecting the vaccine into a few patients, going to billions of patients. So there was a lot of collaboration for that. What was fantastic, and I got the feeling, the opportunity to interact with the leader of a very large pharma company. And as soon as the COVID crisis was starting, I received an email from my own CEO. The feeling was to say, okay, whatever we need to do to defeat COVID, let's do it. That's not business. This is this kind of activity. I will not say that everything was only due to this kind of in silico approach. People were getting smarter in the sense that in a traditional approach, you need to first get approval for the element, then starting doing the animal testing, and then wait for approval, then starting to do this kind of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 testing. People were first getting very quick to give some approval and to review that, FDA, EMA, and so on. And second, as soon as you've got enough elements, you were allowed to start working in parallel. So rather than having one after the other one in a sequential way, you are working in parallel. So the combination of all this kind of approach allows us to reach this kind of success in about 1.5 years rather than typical 10 years. Having said that, I'd like to say that this was not a way to reduce the test. Typically, you are testing on 2,000, 3,000 patients. Here, the COVID vaccine, to my knowledge, has been tested on more than 30,000 patients. So this vaccine has been the most tested vaccine for the history of healthcare so far. So there were no compromise with the safety, to the contrary. So the time reduction is more related to the fact to use new technology to be smarter rather than compromising with any safety.
Okay, thank you. Actually, my next question will be if they had skipped some step or if they have followed the protocol, but as you said, they have been working in parallel in order to speed up the process.
Yes, and not completely in parallel. It was a little bit staggered. So you test on the animals. When you have some result on the animals which are fully satisfying, you can start the phase 1 with some patient while you are wrapping up this element. So we didn't start working with all the patients in parallel, but in a staggered way. But nevertheless, it was saving us quite a lot of time. The example that I was mentioning with Fluida. simply the fact to do some CFD analysis on the respiratory tree of the rats, and then doing the same CFD analysis on the human being. That means that you don't need to translate the result from the animals to the result of the human being. You're following the same numerical protocol. That only was saving them 2 years. So you see, if we start to make sure that we have some nice and smart approach, you can save a lot of time. And the point is to make sure that this will be done in the future. Because, well, I was challenging people. If we are in 2029, COVID-29 is appearing, what are we doing? Think about the fact that the vaccine for COVID-19 was ready in February 2020. And we start getting the approval in the fall 2020. Now let's imagine in 10 years from now, because everybody was smart, we keep funding this kind of approach, we are fully in Silico Clinical Trial approach, which is there. We are getting the vaccine within a month. We are getting the vaccine free test with in Silico Clinical Trial in a matter of days, putting all the computational power over there, immediately accepted by the authority, taking advantage of AI in order to move faster. That means that in March 2020, we can start the vaccination. No second wave, no third wave. That's the kind of goal that we need to follow in the future. In Silico will be the way to dramatically reduce this kind of pandemic impact.
Okay, very promising. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. So I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. There is no raised hand, so I can jump into my own questions. Thierry, yes, well, again, thank you very much. And you have given a lot of very nice examples, and all very connected to the tangible search for solutions and with successful stories. And I think that's fantastic. We need to see that. My question is, so, among these success stories, so for example, this success story with the little child, Giulia in Italy. So what has been then the life after this experience, the technological life of what has been done? Has it been transferred into a more systematic system for regular use and in clinical setup, or was it just a punctual success story and then everyone went home?
And that's a very good question, because at the beginning, indeed, people react in a panic mode. We need to use simulation to save the life of this little Julia. We've got the right contact. We did it. We are very happy for that. One of the elements is communication. That's why I keep saying this kind of education, including of the other clinician, of the regulator, because we need to reassure them that this is possible. It's taking time. But right now, for example, I can say we've got a fantastic presentation of Claudio Capelli, who's helping the clinician at Great Ormond Street Hospital. They're using simulation routinely. I was mentioning Dr. David Oganson. He was telling me that every year they're modeling at least 40% patient. It was the case in 2019. I guess that this is increasing. So that means that right now, all this kind of difficult case are modeled using simulation. And I guess that it will be more and more the case in the future. There is a lot of pressure on us, software provider, all the software provider, to develop this kind of smooth and rapid protocol in such a way that we can go from the patient to the result for the clinician as quickly as possible. In parallel, working with the regulator to explain to them what we are doing so that they can bless this kind of approach. So as usually, at the beginning, you've got a few pioneers. These few pioneers start to multiply. And very soon, I do hope that we will see that this will be done across the board by everybody, simply because the clinician will rely on that. This is giving them much more, this is reducing the uncertainty. Think about the clinician, and especially a young clinician. He's got a kind of difficult patient in front of him, and he's alone to make the decision. If he can rely on some other things, he will be willing to adopt this kind of approach. So still a lot of work to do, but we see that things are changing, and no, this is not an isolated case anymore.
And then I have another question. So within the modeling applied to medicine, so there are two different timescales in terms of we want to see and what we want to simulate. They are relatively short time scales. So these are also examples in pandemics, virology, and cardiovascular too, because things are evolving relatively fast. And then there are all these kind of tissue degenerative diseases that can evolve over 20, over 30 years, that are that spread over very long time scales. And here, I think we have much less transfer of technology of models in this second scale. So I can speak about osteoarthritis, I can speak about intervertebral disc degeneration. Even atherosclerosis per se is a good example of that. Where do you think then the interest of the industry stands in these very specific cases, no? Where you might want to use model at some time point to be able to predict what might happen to the patient within 20 years and to already shape correct preventive actions or identify very early risk factors?
To me, this is the most important and the most promising situation, in the sense that right now we are saying, okay, what will happen when we are implanting a medical device? But indeed, I think this kind of long-term element is more challenging because we need to have the right model. That's the perfect illustration of the need of collaboration between the industry and the research area. How can we model this kind of aging situation? And I know that Professor Markovic has got some kind of model in order to predict, combined with a simulation, to predict what will happen in 10 years from now. How it will be this kind of evolution. I was discussing with the group of Optimize to say, okay, but if you've got some eyes model, will you be able to predict what will be the quality of my vision in 10 years? I'd be very interested to know that, to replace my glasses, or to see whether I can take some measure or some treatment in order to reduce this kind of evolution. And therefore, that means that we start combining this kind of traditional mechanistic model together with a biological model. When I say that this is where there is the biggest value, is that if we still need to do some clinical trial for that, and you need to wait for 10 years to get the certainty that 10 years or 20 years to get the certainty that everything will be good. This means that the medical innovation is extremely small, extremely slow. If we can reduce that with validated model, which is giving you enough feeling and confidence that indeed this kind of model, even in 10 years or 20 years from now, the patient will still be good. It means that this kind of clinical model, clinical trial will be dramatically reduced, and we will make some giant step for medical innovation. It will accelerate quite a lot. That's the only way to make sure that this kind of improvement of healthcare will become sustainable, especially if you combine that with this kind of smart device, which are continuously monitoring what's going on in you, so that we'll get more data in order to refine this kind of model. I don't see this kind of research happening in the industry, in the sense that in the industry, there is a lot of work in order to develop some new technology in the software industry to make sure that we have the right model. That's why I was always claiming the fact that without close collaboration between the academic and the industry, there is no way to advance, or it will be much slower. We need to work together, and especially with all the fantastic work that your team is doing, Jérôme, we need to transfer that into the product and give a due credit to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Thierry. So I think we're actually on time. Maybe we have time for one very short question. We're already into the break, but we have still not invaded the next time slot. Okay, so if there is no further question, so Thierry, then thank you again for this great talk, for sharing this. To all, I just reiterate, Thierry will be here, so these